In this video, we will discuss what inflammation is, the difference between acute inflammation and chronic inflammation, the causes of inflammation, and how to reduce it. Without further ado, let's find out if inflammation really is a silent killer. What is inflammation? Inflammation is part of the body's defense mechanism. It is the process by which the immune system recognizes and removes harmful and foreign stimuli and begins the healing process. When your body activates your immune system, it sends out inflammatory cells. These cells attack bacteria or heal damaged tissue. There are two types of inflammation: acute inflammation and chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation is the response to sudden body damage, such as cutting your finger. To heal the cut, your body sends inflammatory cells to the injury. These cells start the healing process. It starts rapidly, becomes severe in a short time, and symptoms may last for a few days. As you can imagine, this response is essential for our ability to heal ourselves. Chronic inflammation, on the other hand, is when your body continues sending inflammatory cells even when there is no outside danger. If your body sends out inflammatory cells when you are not sick or injured, you may have chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is also referred to as slow, long-term inflammation, lasting for prolonged periods of several months to years. The right kind of inflammation is essential to your body's healing system. But chronic inflammation can be a problem. The saying, "too much of a good thing" applies to much of life, but especially to inflammation. Symptoms of inflammation. The symptom of inflammation also depends on its acute or chronic nature. An injury or illness can involve acute or short-term inflammation. There are 5 key signs of acute inflammation. Pain. This may occur continuously or only when a person touches the affected area. Redness. This happens because of an increase in the blood supply to the capillaries in the area. Loss of function. There may be difficulty moving a joint, breathing, sensing smell, and so on. Swelling. A condition called edema can develop if fluid builds up. Heat, increased blood flow, may leave the affected area warm to the touch. These symptoms are normal reactions, often associated with injury or sickness. Chronic inflammation symptoms may be harder to spot than acute inflammation symptoms. Signs of chronic inflammation can include abdominal pain, chest pain, fatigue, fever, joint pain or stiffness, mouth sores. Skin rash. Because the signs are difficult to spot, many people don't find out chronic inflammation is a problem for them until they are diagnosed with a serious illness. If you feel like you're experiencing some of the common symptoms of chronic inflammation, it's a good idea to speak with your doctor. They'll know the first steps to take when it comes to a diagnosis. Problems associated with chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammatory diseases are the most significant cause of death in the world. The World Health Organization ranks chronic diseases as the greatest threat to human health. In fact, more than 50% of all deaths worldwide are attributed to chronic inflammatory diseases. When you're living with chronic inflammation, your body's inflammatory response can eventually start damaging healthy cells, tissues, and organs. Over time, this can lead to DNA damage, tissue death, and internal scarring. Chronic inflammation is involved in the disease process of many conditions, including Alzheimer's disease, asthma, stroke, cancer, cardiovascular disease, rheumatoid arthritis and ankylosing spondylitis, and type 2 diabetes. Science has proven that chronic low-grade inflammation can turn into a silent killer that contributes to these diseases. What causes chronic inflammation? Chronic inflammation can develop if a person has sensitivity. Inflammation happens when the body senses something that should not be there. Hypersensitivity to an external trigger can result in an allergy. Exposure. Sometimes long-term, low-level exposure to an irritant, such as an industrial chemical, can result in chronic inflammation. Autoimmune disorders. The immune system mistakenly attacks normal healthy tissue, as in psoriasis. Autoinflammatory diseases. A genetic factor affects the way the immune system works, as in Behçet's disease. Persistent acute inflammation. In some cases, a person may not fully recover from acute inflammation. Sometimes this can lead to chronic inflammation. Factors that may increase the risk of chronic inflammation include older age, obesity, a diet that is rich in unhealthy fats and added sugar, smoking, low sex hormones, stress, and sleep problems. That's useful information, but now you might be wondering how to minimize the risk of chronic inflammation. Are there specific steps we can take to reduce inflammation? How to reduce inflammation? Chronic inflammation can have a deleterious effect on the body and is a key factor causing almost all chronic degenerative diseases. The following are some of the most effective ways to prevent chronic inflammation. Increase uptake of anti-inflammatory foods. It is important to avoid eating simple sugars, refined carbohydrates, high glycemic foods, trans fats, and hydrogenated oils. Consuming whole grains, natural foods, plenty of vegetables and fruits such as avocados, cherries, kale, and fatty fish, like salmon, is helpful in defeating inflammation. Minimize intake of antibiotics and NSAIDs. Use of antibiotics, antacids, and NSAIDs should be avoided as it could harm the microbiome in the gut, causing inflammation in intestinal walls known as leaky gut, which in turn releases toxins and triggers chronic, body-wide inflammation. Exercise regularly. It is largely known that adipose tissue in obese or overweight individuals induces low-grade systemic inflammation. Regular exercise is helpful not only in controlling weight, but also decreasing the risk of cardiovascular diseases and strengthening the heart, muscles, and bones. Sleep longer. Overnight sleep, ideally at least 7 to 8 hours, helps stimulating human growth hormones and testosterone in the body to rebuild itself. Stress less. Chronic psychological stress is linked to greater risk for depression, heart disease, and body losing its ability to regulate the inflammatory response and normal defense. Yoga and meditation are helpful in alleviating stress-induced inflammation and its harmful effects on the body. Inflammation. The silent killer? Inflammation isn't a lone villain cutting short millions of lives each year. The truth is, even if you could completely eliminate inflammation, sorry, not possible. You wouldn't want to. Quashing inflammation leaves you vulnerable to deadly infections. Inflammation is part of the process by which the immune system defends the body from harmful agents, such as bacteria and viruses. Acute inflammation is necessary for treating injury, infection, or exposure to substances. Long-term or chronic inflammation, however, can both lead to and result from some severe and possibly life-threatening conditions. We need to better understand what causes inflammation and what prompts it to become chronic. Then we can treat an underlying cause, instead of assigning the blame for every illness to inflammation or hoping that eating individual foods will reduce it. There's no quick or simple fix for unhealthy inflammation. To reduce it, we need to detect, prevent, and treat its underlying causes. Yet there is good news. Most often, inflammation exists in your body for good reason and does what it's supposed to do. And when it is causing trouble, you can take steps to improve the situation. Nevertheless, chronic inflammatory diseases emerge as the leading contributors to global mortality, justifying the label as a silent killer. That's all for today's video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If so, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to OptiHealth for more captivating health-related content. As always, thanks for joining us on this journey, and until next time, stay cool, stay healthy, and stay curious.